I hope you can all hear me, and I hope everyone's in. There's quite a few people here today. Right, so you've got me today. You haven't got Caroline today. And I will start off by talking to you guys about something that I have talked to you about before. But I really want you to take this to heart, because it is something quite simple that causes a lot of issues in the way that you manage employee situations. So I've said to you before that it is really important when you have an incident or a series of incidents with employees that we do not manage that in anger. Do not react in anger. That we remember that this is business, and all you really should do is act according to what the law requires you to do in business. So the reason I'm talking to you about this is because I've got 3 examples from last week where we had employee situations that was handled badly or nearly handled badly. So here are some examples. And these examples will sound familiar for you if you are from a golf club. But there are also some examples of actually being in non-golf club kind of businesses here. So one of the things is we have an employee who has a history of a greenkeeper. He has a history of being late. And by late, I don't mean 5 or 10 minutes late. I mean 90 minutes late, and not calling in. And he also has quite poor attendance. So it's kind of like, is he going to be here, and when's he going to be here? And they don't really know when he's going to turn up or if he's going to turn up, sort of situation. He's become unreliable. And he's had a warning for this. He's had gone through the disciplinary process, and there's been a warning. And since the warning, he's not been late, and he's not been absent without following the correct absence reporting procedure. And we're about 2 months down the line, and he's in line. And then that he doesn't turn up one morning. And the club is very, very frustrated with him and start to send him many messages of where are you, when are you coming in, that kind of thing. They then find a message from him to see that 2 minutes before the start of his shift, he sent a message in to say that he won't be coming in today. And here is where the manager should just have said, thank you for letting us know. This isn't really a reasonable amount of time before the start of your shift, but we'll catch up on this when you're back. That's what he should have said. What he said is, so the employee also detailed why he couldn't come in, which was because he had some tummy troubles and he was stuck on the toilet. He said, I can't leave my toilet. Okay. So I'm sure we've all been there when you think I cannot leave my house safely. And the manager's response was, we are understaffed. You need to come in. Because the manager was frustrated, angry with this employee for not letting him know on time. Generally, the guy's got a history of being late and being absent. And he was frustrated. It was a Sunday morning. He was upset. He was frustrated. He was like, we are short-staffed. You need to come in. And the employee replied with, I'm sorry, I actually can't come in. I cannot leave my toilet. But this is what I mean by that was a very unreasonable response from that employer. It was an angry and unreasonable response to tell a sick employee, I don't care that you're sick. We are short-staffed, which is not the employee's fault. Okay, it may be because he's not coming in, but generally the fact that you don't have enough staff to staff a business area is not the employee's problem, it's the employer's problem. So, but the reaction in saying to an employee who is telling you that they're too sick to come to work, that we are short-staffed and you need to come to work, is unreasonable. and completely done out of anger. Another one is an employee who hadn't worked there very long. She worked in an office in a type of administrator role. She hadn't worked there very long. She's a part-time employee. She has a son with special needs. And this son with special needs was not accepted in the school where he was needing to be placed, which puts a lot of extra care responsibilities on them and a lot of childcare, dependent care responsibilities. The mum had a bit of a breakdown in terms of stress and anxiety. She wrote in to say she can't come to work. She's seeing her doctor. She got signed off sick, sent in a sick note. And then at the end of that sick note, after a week, said, look, I'm still really stressed. I can't stop crying. I'm so worried about this. I don't know what I'm going to do. And actually, I've been signed off sick for another 2 weeks. The employer's response to me, because they were annoyed and angry and frustrated with the situation, was the work is piling up. This is going to be a regular occurrence because of her son's special needs, and we need to fire her. A completely frustrated, angry, unreasonable response, and frankly, illegal. Discrimination on many levels. So again, just acting out of anger in the moment, in frustration, could have made that situation much worse. Luckily, I was able to say, hold on a minute, X, Y, and Z, please think about this. And in the end, she resigned because she felt that she wasn't never going to be able to come back to work because of her childcare responsibilities. But again, keep in mind, there were better business options. The better business option was maybe a welfare conversation to understand how long she might be off and so on, and distributing that work in a different way. And the last one was a process where the employee had gone off sick during a grievance process. The employee had gone off sick for a change, not with mental health, with an actual, physical problem. I can't quite remember what the issue was, but it was a physical issue, and they needed some minor surgery for this. And they requested for this process to be paused, which the employer initially agreed to because it worked for them. And then this happened, what often happens with sick, it kind of rolled into this thing where it was paused so long, everyone forgot it was happening. The employee there was then a welfare meeting to bring this employee back to work. And the employee said, but I can't come back to work because I don't feel safe to come back to work. And here's my, I feel intimidated and pushed into it, blah, blah, blah. And here's, you haven't followed my grievance process and you haven't got back in touch with me. And the employer's response to me was, I need to fire him. I need to fire him. The man had been there like 20 years. And they wanted to fire him because he was insisting that a process that had sort of slowed down and paused and then got a little bit forgotten about by everyone needed to finish before he was willing to come back to work. Maybe not the right response from him either, but the employee acted in anger. The employer acted in anger in saying, we're not doing this process. We want none of this. He needs to be fired. So now we've got a guy with long service. You haven't followed a process and he's got a protected characteristic and you just want to fire him because you're angry and annoyed. So those are some examples that I wanted to give you guys of things in the last 2 weeks that we have handled where in that moment when you are so frustrated and so angry about the current situation, it is important to either contact us and say, I'm so angry about this, I want to do X, Y, and Z, in which case I will talk you down and I will bring you back to what is legally okay and what you can and can't do. Or take a moment, and I haven't got a nice way to say this to you guys, but don't take it so personally. in that moment, remember that this is business. You are two people working together in a business, and there are rules and regulations of how things need to be managed within that, and that you need to act professionally and not let your anger and your frustration rule what you do or say in that moment, because it could land you with a claim or it could make the situation worse. So that's what I wanted to talk to you about today. And I wanted to highlight the bit that I mentioned with the greenkeeper, because this is something that I have seen quite a lot recently. Employers are finding themselves short-staffed, especially in greens teams, in golf clubs. I think it's the time of the year, it's really busy, everyone's worked full speed. And now you've got to the end of your season, and maybe you've lost some people along the way, or you've got some people on sick, or you've got people using lots of holiday, and you are finding that you don't really have enough staff to cover the work. And I want to remind you that that is not your staff's problem. It really isn't. It is not a reason to give them, to expect things from them that you wouldn't normally expect from them. Now, don't get me wrong, that doesn't mean you can't give them an extra couple of shifts because, so-and-so's on holiday. That's really reasonable to say, oh, you've got extra shift scheduled to cover so-and-so, and, when you're on holiday, they'll cover you, kind of thing. But using it as a whip as such, or a stick, isn't right, because ultimately the fact that you are not able to staff your department properly, it's not your staff's fault. Yeah, so keep that in mind. So I feel like I've given you guys a telling off today, which I didn't mean to. It's more of a warning to ensure that that you always act in a professional way, and you think about that, and you don't act in an angry way to staff. So do you guys have any questions for me? Anything? Are you guys too scared to ask me now after I told you off?
Have you got me? Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you, John.
Right, I've got an employee starting, a bar colleague, Patricia, and I'm going to give Patricia some regular hours on set days and times, but I'm also going to have her regularly doing additional hours as per the requirements of the diary. So what I'm looking for from you is some advice on how to recompense her in regard of annual leave. So I could give her pro rata annual leave, but it would seem to be much easier. I mean, can I just apply the same formula that we do with a 0 hours contract, or not in that instance? Because she's got some set hours and
not quite. But it's a really good question, John. It's actually a question. It's the third time this week I've had that question, so it's a really good question, actually. So just to clarify, Patricia is going to be on a part-time contract, right? So it's going to have guaranteed minimum hours, and then she's going to work over those hours as
that's needed. Right. Well, I'm gonna try and word it, and again, I can run this by you, but I want to give her sort of an average minimum of 15 hours a week, but it will include some set shifts, which are slightly seasonal, so they'll be slightly longer in summer and slightly shorter but an average of 15 hours per week is a minimum average is how I'm going to that's how I was wanting to word it.
Okay, can I ask you why you want to word it like that? Will it ever be less than 15?
No, well, it might be, because it might be in winter. What do you think? Am I best off just saying, look, we'll give you a minimum of 15 hours a week?
Yeah, so it's really important that you actually give a minimum. So if you can't give a minimum of 15, give a minimum of 12. For example, and say, right, okay, we guarantee a minimum, so she's on a part-time contract for 12 hours a week. And then you can say to her, but there will often be extra hours. This is just the minimum that I'm guaranteeing you if it's really quiet. But usually there'll be extra hours, and you can have as many of them as you want. And they'll be worked at your normal working rate. So that's the best way to do it. So don't confuse it with an average hours or something. Just give them the minimum that you can offer them in a quiet time, and then everything else on top. Now, if we come to the holiday question, and by the way, you don't have to detail this in the contract, John. All you have to do is your contract template. You would just complete that to say that it's 12 hours, the contract is for 12 hours a week. And then in additional hours, it will say that any additional hours is worked at your normal working rate. You don't have to document the arrangement of it's 12 hours, but there'll probably be extra hours and you can have them. You don't have to say that.
All right. But if she works additional hours, am I right in saying that, does she have to receive a pro rata benefit in connection with those additional hours?
Yes, so that's annual leave now. Yeah. So how the holiday would work is, for a part-time employee, they have pro rata holiday. So she will have pro rata holiday for the 12 hours. Yeah. Right. And that is her base holiday. That's what she's got based on her contractual hours. Okay. Yeah. So let's say that's 100 hours a year. Okay. Just grabbing a number. I've not done any calculations. So let's say it's 100 hours a year. Then what you do is, with any of the extra hours, and it's easy to do this every month at the end of payroll, when you run payroll, calculate her extra hours. So let's say this month she's done 10 extra hours. So you've got her basic hours and you're paying her for 10 hours extra. Those 10 hours extra, on them you can do 12.07%.
Yeah.
To
the same as a 0 hours calculation.
Not to pay, to accrue. So that'll tell you how much you accrue, and then you add that accrual to her annual allocation manually. Which means if that accrual is 1 hour extra holiday, then she now has 101 hours.
Right. So it has to be done as an accrual. It can't be done as pay.
Out for it. You
Sorry?
can only pay 0 hour staff out for their holiday.
Yeah.
You cannot pay anyone else out. So, but you're using two different systems. You're using the basic pro rata holiday allocation for the contracted hours, and the extra hours you're calculating
an accrual.
The accrual with it using the 12.0% method, but that holiday is being added manually to her allocation for her to use when she wants to. I hope that's clear. I'm trying to explain that as clearly as possible.
It's absolutely clear, and I understand what I need to do. Yeah. Thank you very much. Thank you.
No problem. Any other questions? Mal?
Just carrying on from last time when we said about reducing hours, I had that conversation and this is how it went. I don't want to do that. I want to use my holiday first. I was like, okay. But I can see that the holiday is not going to be enough to cover the period that we need. So I am actually going to have to do it, but it's not going down very well. I guess I just have to do it irrespective.
Yes. So, and the best thing there to do, and that often is the response, by the way, the response is often, can't I use holiday first? Because they don't want to be out of pocket. So absolutely, you can go back to the person and say, we discussed this, just following on from our discussion, we discussed this. You suggested that you use your holiday first. I've looked at how much holiday you have. You have enough holiday to do this for 6 weeks. So let's go ahead and do that, because that way you're not out of pocket. And then closer to the end of the 6 weeks, we'll review where we are then and whether we still need to go ahead with this then. So You're making it clear that this is not off the table, but you are taking their suggestion on. You're going with their suggestion, and then you will review and see if you need to.
Okay. Second part to the question then, we're getting to the end of the year, so there's not as much holiday left. Can I let them take holiday from next year? Okay.
That's not wise.
Right.
It's not wise, because if you end up in a redundancy situation or something, you're going to be out of pocket for this.
But if
I mean, how much are we talking? Are we talking 2 or 3 days, or are we talking,
well,
like 5, 6 days?
Probably 5 or 6 days or something. Because the thing is, I thought if you took holiday ahead of time and somebody, part company or someone leaves, that you take it out of their salary because it's owed back to you. Or is that not right?
Well, it is. If the employee said, I want to go on a world trip and I'm 5 days short, can I use 5 days from next year's holiday? Sure. I'm using 5 days, so you don't put me on short time working, please. No.
Right.
So, because you've put them in a difficult position, and really you're the one saying you haven't got enough holiday, but I can let you use some holiday from next year, which means that
give them the option and they choose it. Offering them, they don't have to. So therefore, if they've willingly said they want to, does that not count?
I would say you're in murky waters on that one, to be honest.
Okay.
It's not, I can't tell you that you're in the clear with that. I'm sorry.
Okay.
I would rather, if I were you, I'd let them use what they have, make an arrangement to say, look, you've got enough left for 6 weeks, but actually we're probably going to end up having to do this for 12 weeks. But I also think it looks more reasonable, rather than trying to put all that in place now. It looks more reasonable to say, you've got enough for 6 weeks, so let's do that. And closer to the end of those 6 weeks, we'll review and see where the business is, because you might have picked up in bookings by then.
Yeah. Okay.
So yeah, I would do it like that. It just looks more reasonable.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Nothing? Okay, well, it was lovely talking to you guys, and I'll see you next week. Bye.
Thanks for watching. If you want a free peace of mind call with us to discuss your policies, handbook, and any burning staff issues in your business, click the link in the description below.